We've been talking recently about how David Lee Roth has been taking shots at both Wolfgang Van Halen and Sammy Hagar. No real surprise there with Sammy Hagar. The two have always kind of traded barbs at different times. But Sammy Hagar did extend an olive branch to David Lee Roth late last year when he invited him to take the stage with him at certain performances. He's going to be inviting all sorts of guests to pay homage to the Van Halen legacy, especially Eddie Van Halen. A lot of conversation over the last few years has been about putting on some sort of a tribute show for Eddie Van Halen. We know that's not going to happen at this point, and there were rumors that David Lee Roth might have been the person who had kind of gotten in the way of that. That had been implied. But there hadn't been much to be said about David Lee Roth in recent weeks, and then out of nowhere, he started uploading to his YouTube channel these kind of radio skits where he is mocking both Sammy Hagar and Wolfgang Van Halen. Wolfgang Van Halen is really just focused on his music. He's been touring with Metallica. He's really stayed out of this. He doesn't seem to bother anyone. He's a great musician, and he is doing very well on his own. He's got some big tours coming up, not just with Metallica, but also he's going to be performing out on the road with the recently reunited Creed, which I'm very pumped about as well. But now Sammy Hagar has responded to kind of what David Lee Roth has been saying about him. He had a pretty good take on this. He was recently at the Music Cares event honoring John Bon Jovi, and this is what he had to say when asked about this. And then we're going to talk about some new things that David Lee Roth has been saying about Wolfgang. So here we have it. People magazine spoke to him. It says, Sammy Hagar doesn't take the mean-spirited comments that David Lee Roth has made about Eddie Van Halen's son, Wolfgang Van Halen, lightly. And, I think that's correct. The thing for me here is that David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen accomplished so much together. It's just bizarre to see him attacking his son, just if not out of respect for the accomplishments you had with Eddie. You think, he was around when Wolfgang was this little kid, and now you're just kind of like viciously attacking him publicly. And it doesn't make a lot of sense to me from that regard. But this is what Sammy had to say. While speaking with people on Saturday ahead of Music Care's Person of the Year ceremony and concert in honor of John Bon Jovi at the Los Angeles Convention Center, Hagar shared his reaction to the recent critical comments that Roth made about the bassist. Also, Hagar's 76. This guy does not age. Sammy Hagar doesn't age. Here's what he said. Look, if you really think about what he said, it's like, do I sense a little tinge of jealousy in there or something? He goes, does he feel like he's left out of something or something? I mean, honestly, the only thing I can say without being cruel is he needs to find a new dispensary. This one's not working for him. And I mean, as people pointed out, the rant really was mean-spirited from David Lee Roth. This is what he had to say, and the whole thing is just bizarre. He uploaded this video and said, this fucking kid, he's complaining the entire tour like I'm not paying enough attention to him on stage, referring to when David Lee Roth was touring with Van Halen and Wolfgang was on bass. And, he was just growing up. He was very young at this point. He goes, he's complaining to everybody around me, the business manager, the security guy, the clothing lady. Dave's not paying enough attention to me. He says he commandeered a couple of monkeys to go in the back, apparently referring to security, behind my back over to the side of the stage and throw out these two great dames that I had invited to be my guests to the show. In fact, you're not going to believe this shit. This kid, what he doesn't know is that these two dames work for the accounting firm that represent him, not me. But as usual, just like his uncle and his uncle's brother, stiffed them for tickets. Now, as if that isn't enough, David Lee Roth also uploaded this new video where he goes on this rant. I'm going to play a little bit of this for you. Now, listen to this here. David Lee Roth opens things up like he's going to be issuing some sort of an apology.
Before we get started today, I just want to say something that without all the music and all the comedy and everything, that I know I've upset some people, and I love my old rock band and I miss Ed, and I didn't mean to upset anybody, and I would just don't turn the mic off. I feel so wrong. I did something so wrong. Psych. Fuck you.
And then later in the skit, you have David Lee Roth essentially mocking Wolfgang and this caricature of Wolfgang as this little kid who doesn't understand anything. And he's kind of demeaning his work with Van Halen. And any way you look at it, regardless of whether or not you like Wolfgang or whatever, like, He's a really talented musician in his own right. He plays all his instruments on his record. He's a hell of a guitar player. This is what David Lee Roth had to say.
Gang.
Yeah?
Do you remember Leon Spinks?
No.
How about Larry Holmes or Trevor Burbank? Well, these were the last couple of Muhammad Ali's fights, and nobody wants to remember them because they were no fun.
You mean like the throwaway in Manila or the Year of Zaire?
Exactly. And your albums with Van Halen are a lot like those last two fights.
Just very, very bizarre to me. And I got to say, for someone who's made so much money, done as well as he is, he's like focusing on so much negativity here. And I'm really perplexed. Hey, in some cases you could go, oh, does he have a tour to promote? Is there something going on that might explain why he's doing this? I don't think David Lee Roth has any plans on performing. He's not trying to promote anything. It seems like he's just goofing off at home and just making these kind of skits. You know, I'd be willing to hear David Lee Roth out if he wants to come on here and talk about this, and he can call into the show anytime, as is the case for anyone, Sammy, anybody who wants to call in. But it just doesn't make much sense to me here, and I'd love to hear your honest thoughts in the comments. Some people are going, look, this is how Dave is. He's just very real. I've seen some of those comments as well. I know there's multiple views on this. But hey, anyways, that's your latest update from Rockfeed. Consider supporting on Patreon. We're going to have a very big unreleased interview being posted there very soon that's never been seen. It's a lost interview that I've recently recovered. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button if you're new here, and stick around for the latest news and updates.